Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the training today. We're going to talk about writing bid specifications, an exciting topic. So let's face it, most SFA directors do not like writing bid specifications because it's very tedious and it's time consuming. But writing quality specifications for your bids is important because they serve as quality and cost control standards for your SFA. They help avoid misunderstanding between suppliers, buyers, and users by detailing exactly what is being requested. They are essential when a district is seeking price quotes for both formal and informal procurements. The SFA needs to communicate all of the characteristics they want to purchase to prospective vendors. It helps the vendors understand exactly what you want to purchase so that a competitive price can be quoted. And it helps ensure that when you receive price quotes, you are comparing apples to apples. The SFA doesn't want one vendor quoting broccoli florets and another quoting broccoli cuts. Providing vendors with detailed specifications is also a requirement for the child nutrition program. Of course, the driving force behind your bid specifications is, of course, your cycle menu. Menus must meet all federal guidelines and be appealing to the customer. It's good practice for districts to use the cycle menu for a designated period of time. Menus that are created by seasons allow for the opportunity to incorporate in-season options. Planning menus in advance saves time, helps avoid repetitive tasks, reduces labor, and implements cost-effective inventory management. The process that is used for developing bid specifications are, like we said, first developing the cycle menu, and then you have to have standardized recipes, either find the recipes or standardize the recipes. I'm a big believer in borrowing recipes that have already been standardized. You've got to evaluate the quality of the product and the customer acceptance of your current items. Research the market for new items you might want to use. Request a description of the product from the manufacturer. Taste test with your customers, and then write your bid specifications. It's always a good idea to conduct a screening of products that you may want to include on your menus. If you screen products, that allows you to provide a list of pre-approved equal product brands to use when writing bid specifications. Some schools may find that their customers prefer certain brands, which in turn, of course, increases participation. The SFA needs to limit the use of brand specifications to items where the brand really does make a difference in acceptability and in participation. One food item that always comes to mind to me is pizza. SFA directors are always reporting that their students prefer one brand of pizza over another brand of pizza. If the decision is made to use a brand name product, then the SFA needs to have written justification that supports the brand. Including or pre-approved equal gives the prospective vendors the opportunity to present their product to the SFA for consideration, and it's done before the bid opening. The menu and the standardized recipe is going to help you determine the type of products you want to purchase. There are 3 product categories. There's distributor's choice, private label, and the manufacturer's brand. So you're going to review all of the categories to determine which label fits your needs. For example, the SFA would not need to purchase top quality labeled green beans to prepare a green bean casserole. The distributor's choice category of products has only like one ingredient or a few ingredients, and it represents a lower dollar volume. The supplier may quote a price on any brand, and the school district is not placing any restrictions on the brand to be purchased. The supplier is not asked to identify the brand being quoted, and the site receiver does not check the brand delivered. Therefore, the distributor may change the brand without notifying the school district. The only requirement is that the product is in the pack size and case size that is identified on the solicitation document. An example that I always think of to distributor's choice is, do you really check the brand of your flour as it comes in? That's certainly, it's a single brand product, and that's certainly something that most people don't care which type of flour it is. So what you do want to make sure is that the pack size is how it's quoted. The case of pinto beans, if they send you 12 303 cans, that can't be substituted for 6 number 10 cans. And a 50-pound bag of sugar cannot be substituted with 2 25 pounds of sugar. But you may want to consider moving as many products as you can to the distributor's choice, because it reduces the time needed to develop bid specifications. Those bid specifications can be very short and sweet. Next is the private label brand. And private label products are packed under industry acceptable standards. The private label represents the supplier's brand. I know Cisco used to be one that had all Cisco products, but many distributors also have their own private label brand, and they prefer to sell it instead of the brand name item. Again, although the supplier chooses the brand, it still must conform to your specifications. It's a good idea to taste test the private label brands to ensure it's going to meet your specifications. And then lastly, there's the manufacturer's brand. And manufacturer's brands are recognized by name and generally attract customers who are loyal to their name. Manufacturer's brand products are usually things like main entrees, contain multiple ingredients, and are processed. Your objective as the SFA director is to have the product available each time it is on the menu. This is what increases participation and keeps customers coming back. These products are subject to tremendous variation in quality among brands. Just think about the pizza, and most every grocery store has an entire aisle in the frozen food section with just pizza. And most people go and look for the specific brand that they like. As food becomes more complex and processed, more effort has to be devoted to quality control. So you would want to use a manufacturer's brand for things like the pizza, chicken nuggets, whole grain burritos, whole grain French toast, those type of things. So what is a product specification? It's a statement that includes the requirements to be satisfied by a product, material, and/or process. It's important to develop specifications that do not restrict competition. If you specify a brand name only product instead of allowing the pre-approved equal to be offered, it restricts free and open competition. Writing specifications can be difficult and time-consuming because the descriptions are often long and very detailed. But in some cases, the specification can be limited to only those characteristics that are essential for communicating with the supplier, such as the standard of identity, quality, grade, and size. Most single ingredient foods, such as fresh produce or grated meats, often only need a very brief description. Remember to use common language of the industry when developing product specifications. It's important to provide a clear product description. The clearer the specification, the more likely you are to receive the product that you're really requesting. So what are we going to include in our bid specification? We, of course, need to include the name of the product, excuse me, a description of the product, the case pack and weight, minimum and maximum size and pieces, as well as the main ingredient. You also want to list other product ingredients. Prohibited ingredients. If it's a peanuts-free school, you definitely don't want it cooked in peanut oil. Nutritional standards, the unit on which the award is made, and any quality indicators you might have, such as like grade A, grade B, grade A fancy. So for the product name, you would think it's always self-explanatory, but it's not. Take, for example, chicken nuggets. There are hundreds of different chicken nuggets in the marketplace, but there's also chicken fritters and chicken tenders. Make sure you know what you're asking for. The same goes for apples. What kind of apple do you want? There's a Red Delicious, a Golden Delicious, a Granny Smith, a Jonathan, Macintosh, Fuji, and there's more. I don't know if you can name as many kinds of apples as I just did. And since I'm not really an authority on apples, I went to the Choice Plus reference guide to review the popular varieties. This manual is extremely old. The version that's pictured here was published in 1996, but I find it extremely helpful when trying to write product descriptions and specifications. So let's talk about the product description. A vendor needs to have a good description of the product. So you might want to use the type, the cut, the shape, the portion size, the pre-cooked weight, whether you want it frozen, fresh, or dry. In case of chicken nuggets, what type of chicken nuggets are they? Are they spicy, southern, breaded, battered? Do you want a particular shape, such as the dinosaur-shaped nugget? Are they pre-cooked and just need to be reheated, or are they raw? Do they come to you frozen? There's all kinds of things that we want to include in the product description. If you're doing a product description for a brand name item, you must again allow the equal product to be substituted to ensure maximum and free competition. So if you're specifying a brand, you should also include the manufacturer's name for the product, the manufacturer's code number, and the manufacturer's pack size. This will you are trying to ensure that all vendors are bidding apples to apples, no pun intended, with the products that they sell. Remember that you can state in the bid specification that only pre-approved equals are allowed. Never let a vendor determine what is considered an equal. Their determination of equal may not be the same as yours. You may even want to have the prospective vendor submit a large enough sample so that you can do a taste test with some of your students. Case, pack, and weight is very important. You want to tell them, how is the item to be packaged? How big are the cases? It can be simple as 6 number 10 cans, about 4 or 5 pound loaves, or not to exceed 25 pounds. When writing specifications, when you're talking about weight, you definitely want to, if you have a kitchen with all small or older ladies, you may want to specify that a bag of flour, a bag of sugar should not exceed 25 pounds. You also might need to include things like whether it's individually wrapped, is it 48 or 72 to the case, or say cases can't exceed 25 pounds. You also want to describe the minimum and maximum size of the product you would be willing to accept, such as each serving must weigh a minimum of 3.9 ounces and cannot exceed 4.1 ounces, or 5 nuggets per 3 ounce portion. You also want to include the main ingredients. Products may have a lot of different ingredients, but everything always has a primary ingredient, and oftentimes that ingredient has a quality indicator. Some possible examples might include beef, pinto beans, whole muscle white chicken breast meat. A quality indicator example could be whole muscle white chicken meat versus natural proportion chicken meat, which would include both dark and white meat. But if you only want the white meat, you need to make sure that you specify that. Make sure that you describe what other ingredients are included in the product. If you don't specifically list an ingredient, you shouldn't expect it to be in the product ingredients. But be careful of being too specific, because you may not be able to find a product that meets your specifications. Definitely will include any prohibited ingredients. And things like no MSG, food additives, no artificial coloring. Of course, for us, no trans fat, specific allergens, no soy, no egg, and no peanuts. The nutrition standards should always be included. They are the minimum or maximum nutrient or ingredient requirements or their limitations. For example, your product specification might state that 2 chicken drumsticks must equal at least 2 ounces meat alternate. If you're purchasing a bean burrito, your product specification might state that the bean in the burrito has to provide 1.5 ounce equivalents for the meat alternate. Or the burrito has to be a whole grain rich tortilla and must provide a 1.5 ounce equivalent for the grains component. Regardless of what you specify, products must meet CN meal pattern requirements to be claimed for reimbursement. Make sure that you specify when you need documentation that proves the product meets CN meal pattern requirements, including the CN label and or the product formulation statement. Be very specific on how you want, what unit size you want the award to be made on. Do you want them to price by the case, priced by the serving size, or priced by the pound? You want to make sure that the vendors are consistent about what their price is, because you will spend a lot of time doing the conversions if you don't require it in your bid. If I price it by the pound and someone else prices it by the serving size, then I've got to do some research and figure out which one is going to be the cheaper price. And that's not always as easy as it looks. Be careful when you allow weight ranges, as this could lead you to award an item to a vendor that does not have the lowest price. Let's look at the weight range of a 3.9 to a 4.1 ounce portion of chicken nuggets. In this example, vendor B has a lower case price than vendor A, but their portion price is higher. If the SFA states they will be awarding by the 30-pound case and chose vendor B because the case price is cheaper, they would not be awarding to the vendor with the lowest price. Vendor A has the lower portion price, and that's because their vendor A has a slightly smaller portion. But we've allowed in our specifications that range of 3.9 to 4.1 ounces. Let's talk about standards of identity. There are some foods that are very basic and are either defined by their single ingredient or by their standard of identity. An example of that is yogurt. In order to be called yogurt, the standards of identity, there are a mandatory set of requirements related both to the nature, the composition, and the essential characteristics of a food that must be met in order to be marketed under a specific name, like yogurt. FDA describes the standards of identity as being used to promote honesty and fair dealing in the interest of consumers. Take a look at this standard of identity. This is for cheddar cheese. I always think of cheddar cheese when I think of standards of identity, because you have so many different, you have cheddar cheese, you have processed cheese, you have cheese food, cheese substitute. But cheddar cheese is always one that I look at. If you actually look up the FDA regulations on all of them, some of these products, this is just a snippet of what is required in order for a product to be called cheddar cheese. So the Code of Federal Regulations requires that the food products meet very specific criteria in order to be called things like cheddar cheese. This is, like I said, part of the description that's listed on the side. The bottom line is, if you are purchasing cheddar cheese, you should know that it must meet specific quality standards to be called cheddar cheese. Grade standards are USDA quality standards and are based on measurable attributes that describe the value and utility of the products. US grade standards provide uniform language for describing the quality and condition for meat, poultry, fresh fruits and vegetables, and processed fruits and vegetables. While safety inspections are mandatory, the federal government does not require that all food products are graded. But you need to know your grades. Produce is graded based on the amount of imperfections that are allowed. And it's up to you to determine what you're willing to accept. For example, if you order bananas, you can also order varying stages of ripeness. In stage 1 to 3, you're going to be receiving a green banana. In stage 3 to 6, it'll be at least green tipped. And if it's a 7+, it will be ripe. It's important to let your vendor know how you want to receive your product. Many of the food processors participate in grading voluntarily because their customers list grade requirements in their specifications. Grade standards such as USDA Prime or USDA Choice are based on the product's taste, texture, and appearance. But you really need to look closely at the grade standards. This is a comparison of the grade standards for a USA grade peach and a US grade B peach. And if you look at this chart, there is not one bit of difference. This is the first items that I looked at when I looked at grade A peaches and grade B peaches, is that at least in part, the grade standards for both were similar, and on this product, they are exactly the same. And of course, you know that when preparing bid solicitations for agricultural products such as meats, grains, fruits, and vegetables, you have to include the Buy American provision as a requirement. This provision requires that an SFA, to the maximum extent practicable, purchase domestic commodities or products. The term domestic commodity or product means an agricultural commodity that is produced in the United States or a food product that is processed in the United States substantially using agricultural commodities that are produced in the United States. And I'll stop here for just a minute and tell you something that's going on that I probably don't even need to tell you, because you probably already know that many of you are having problems getting domestically grown romaine and iceberg lettuce. And that is because the crop has been damaged in the Seneca Valley in California and in other places. And so most of the lettuce you'll be getting at this point in time is Mexican. But you had your, whoever won your bid, you had them quote you on American grown lettuce and American grown other things. And at this point in time, you may not be able to get American grown. Now, you have to, my understanding is that the foreign products have gone up significantly in price. So you have a decision to make, but if you need to accept Mexican romaine so that you can have your dark green, then you need to make sure that you send out the Buy American certification form or provide the Buy American certification form to your vendor. Make sure that if they are using or they are sending you a non-domestic product, that they also send you the Buy American certification form with their reasoning so that you can keep that on file. That has to be done 14 days in advance of receiving the item. That's also a USDA regulation. And I sent a memo out about this today. So if you are having problems, and it may be sporadic problems that you're having, but get that on file so you won't have it, so it doesn't cause you any issues. Let's look at a couple of examples, product specifications. I need to purchase apples to be served in my school. I'm going to be using Red Delicious apples. And I've decided what size I plan to use. And you can use the Choice Plus reference guide to assist you in seeing what sizes are available. I know that both a 125 count and a 138 count is going to provide 1 cup of an apple. So I'm going to use a range and allow vendors to bid on either. However, some vendors carry both a 125 and a 138 count. So that is going to dictate how vendors should quote apples. In this case, as we saw in the chicken nuggets before, having prospective vendors quote per case will not provide an accurate portion cost. So I may decide to have them quote based on the portion price. That Choice Plus reference guide that I just showed you will also tell me what size each apple should be. So if I feel like in the past I've not gotten the correct size apple, I can look here and see the 138 count apple should be 2 3/4 inches in diameter, and a 125 count apple should be 2 7/8 inches in diameter. Not a big difference. Next, I have to determine what grade of Red Delicious apple I plan to use. Of course, the US Extra Fancy is the highest quality, but it's also going to be the most expensive. It's certainly going to be more expensive than the US Fancy. After reviewing the characteristics of both on the Agricultural Marketing Service website, I determined that US Fancy is a quality product, and it is the grade of the product we're going to use. It's not quite as expensive as Extra Fancy. An easy way to help you determine what quantity of apples are going to be needed is to request a velocity report from your present vendor. Remember, when you're putting out bids or quotes, you need to provide a history of what you've served in the past in terms of quantity. But a velocity report is going to show the quantity of apples that you purchased over the last year, and it's the best tool that you have for determining your future needs. Be careful not to over forecast. You want to make sure that you are giving prospective vendors accurate information about your usage. Over forecasting can result in increased prices if the vendor feels the information that you provided is not accurate. Studies have shown that SFAs get better pricing when the prospective vendors can trust that you will use the approximate amount that you forecast. So here's my completed product specification for my apples. I know some of you are thinking, or even saying out loud that you don't have time to do all of this in your busy day for each and every item that you use. Remember that you only have to do a bid spec once, and you can reuse it year after year after year if you're happy with your choices. Also, when you're beginning to write bid specifications, spend your time writing detailed specifications for products where you spend the most money and the items that have the most impact on the quality of the meal. Most districts will also share their bid specifications with you for you to review, and then you can change them as you need to. Let's look at another example. I want to purchase a 2-ounce whole grain bagel. I need to specify whether I want them to be in bulk or whether I want them individually wrapped. If I'm doing a grab and go breakfast, I may want them individually wrapped. And I particularly like Linder's bagels because they're soft and the students really like them. They have a white whole grain bagel, so the students don't realize it's whole grain. I'm going to state in my product specifications that the vendor is to quote a Linder's white whole grain bagel or pre-approved equal. So the vendor that wants to use a pre-approved equal must submit, and the SFA must approve the use of another brand of bagel before the stated date put forth in the bid. I know that this Linder's bagel is bulk, and there's 72 2-ounce bagels in a case. I would state that under the case pack. Be sure to include the Buy American provision because remember, grain is an agricultural product. The main ingredient in this product is whole grain flour, and I'm estimating my usage to be 480 cases for the coming year. And I want each vendor to bid on the price per case. Remember that specifications do not only apply to food. You are going to use specifications to purchase office supplies, kitchen equipment, janitorial supplies, security systems, marketing materials, and even phone plans. What is the result of a good specifications? If your specifications have been written correctly, it will result in fair and equitable treatment of vendors. The SFA gets what they need. Time is spent doing procurement is minimized throughout the process. And the SFA receives the best price or value. And all of this increases customer satisfaction. Do make sure that you provide ample time for your vendors to submit bids. While the minimum time required between the first advertisement and the bid opening is 15 days, busy vendors may not be able to prepare bids in that short time period. This may cause some vendors to choose not to bid. So give them as much time as you possibly can to ensure you are able to get their best price. So that is our training for today. If anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat box. Well, it does not look like we have any questions. So with that, I will tell you good day and have a happy Halloween. Okay.